fight set to be announced. Who knows, by the time this goes out, it could be announced. Anthony Joshua will take on Daniel Dubois, September, Wembley Stadium. Yep, the home of the national football team. 90,000 are going to pack in there. And I think they will pack in there as well. We've been waiting for a mega fight in the UK, and I think we're about to get one. It's funny because, Gav, this wasn't a fight where, a year ago, you're not even talking about this. It's not even on the radar. It's AJ making his comeback, but AJ hopefully versus Fury, AJ hopefully versus Wilder, maybe even a Joe Joyce, maybe Zhilei Zhang. Daniel Dubois was way down the pecking order of likely opponents, but he deserves it. He's had good wins against Jarrell Miller, very good win against Hrgovic, a good outing, I thought, as well against Alexander Usyk for a few rounds. And now he's a live dog. He's a live opponent. This is going to be an interesting fight, I think.
Frank Warren's been saying that he would take this fight in a heartbeat for a long time, especially before Daniel Dubois' loss to Joe Joyce and the loss to Alexander Usyk. He said he would take this fight in a heartbeat. He thinks that his man has the style to unhinge Anthony Joshua, to dethrone, if you like, Anthony Joshua from his pedestal as one of the wrecking balls of British heavyweight boxing. I think this is Anthony Joshua's toughest fight since his last loss to Alexander Usyk. Quite clearly. You look at, as you said, the resonance and the rise of Daniel Dubois since his losses to Usyk, which he learnt from as well, and Joe Joyce, which he learnt from. He can now come through a difficult period in a fight. His resilience is there quite clearly in his chin. We saw that in the early parts of the fight against Filip Hrgovic. He can sustain an assault, as we saw against Jarrell Miller. And he's learnt from the Usyk fight. And I think you put it very well. He learnt from the Usyk fight. He looked very good for a few rounds. But what he also has learnt is when the opportunity is there, you have to strike. Now, I'm not saying that fight is definitely going to be the one that's going to be announced tomorrow. I'm going to throw a little bit of salt on the meat here before we cook it and season it a little bit, because Joseph Parker deserves the shout as much as Daniel Dubois. Zhilei Zhang deserves the shout as much as Daniel Dubois. And so we don't know. They might throw us a huge curveball tomorrow. We believe there's a press conference at Wembley tomorrow. I mean, I still think it will be Joshua and Dubois. It hasn't been confirmed to any of us. We don't know. But speculating that the biggest seller is Daniel Dubois against Anthony Joshua. I'm really looking forward to it if that fight is announced. I think it'll be a fantastic fight. I think it'll go 7 or 8 rounds, and I think Joshua will win by stoppage after a couple of harem-scarum moments.
Yeah, and look, of the options, and you mentioned Parker as an option, Zhang, and I'll chuck Kabayel in there as well. He's had a good run at Riyadh season.
I think Kabayel, the German.
Yeah, he deserves to be in that mix. But Dubois almost is the sexier one, isn't it? I mean, because you bring Frank Warren element to it as well. It's a fellow Brit. And look, I mean, I was never too high on Hrgovic, but I mean, that's a big win. A lot of people were telling me beforehand that Hrgovic is the top 6, top 7 heavyweight. And Daniel Dubois, after the first 4 or 5 rounds, started to bully him and make it dirty there. So I actually think Dubois deserves the opportunity to get in there against Anthony Joshua. And Dubois has been wanting that fight for a while. My thing is, I don't know how long AJ's been thinking about Dubois. Whereas Dubois has been looking up and thinking, I want that opportunity against AJ. AJ's not, without sounding rude, not been looking down thinking I want Dubois. He's been focusing on Fury, Wilder, and other names as well. So would it come as a bit of a surprise for AJ that the man potentially opposing him in the ring is Daniel Dubois and not those names?
When you're where Anthony Joshua is, you're a target. You're a target for everyone. He's a target because he's a prize fighter. He's a target because he draws huge purses. He's a target because he's headed back up. He's risen and fallen and risen and fallen and risen again. He's on a rise at the moment. There are question marks over the last 2 victories based on who they are. But look what he did against Otto Wallin. Look what he did against Francis Ngannou. As a result, he's been installed above Tyson Fury with the WBC and on BoxRec, which will give him enormous confidence. He's where he needs to be. He's very settled with Ben Davison and Lee Wiley. I mean, I know Ben very well, and that he's very, very happy with Ben. He's happy being there. He's happy in that group. He's happy in that Ben Davison Performance Centre in Harlow. It's where he wants to go. It's not far from home. This is a major moment for him returning. This is a homecoming for Anthony Joshua, and it's about him. That will sell 60,000 seats alone, that Anthony Joshua is returning. I like how he is at the moment. I listened to him on BBC Radio 4's Desert Island Discs yesterday.
I enjoyed that. I listened to that as well.
It was very, very good. I liked him talking about being in a dark room for 96 hours or 120 hours, and how he thought about family and thought about stillness and thought about being. And I do like that about Anthony, and the fact that he wants to start a home for retired boxers who need help made my heart glow, if I'm honest with you. I thought that was a beautiful thing to hear. I like how he is, and I like where he is. One of the most amazing nights at Wembley Stadium when he fought Vladimir Klitschko, and he remembers it so well. And it is one of the highlights of my career, that event. It was just extraordinary. And here we are, we're going back to Wembley with Anthony Joshua 7 years later, in what is an enormous fight, backed by Riyadh Season, the change in the heavyweight division, the pressure's on him again. He talked that night about, do you remember he said, I looked out this, not 3 or 4 tiers, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 tiers, and I felt something from it. I think we're going to get that again from him in September.
Yeah, it's good that you touched on the fact it is Riyadh Season as well. Obviously, this will be His Excellency's Turki Al-Sheikh's first event over in the UK. Obviously, we have the one coming up in LA with Terence Crawford versus Madrimov. But I think it's fantastic that they're coming over to the UK and putting on an event as well, because we then get these, if you like, these Super Bowl WrestleMania-like cards that we're not used to in the UK. We're used to, obviously, that we've done Wembley before, but it can get very top-heavy. We're not used to seeing a fantastic fight card. And you just know that His Excellency is going to go as big as humanly possible for his first event in the UK. You know, nothing's going to be spared. We're expecting, Gareth, and feel free to tell us if you know anything, a supreme fight card to be announced.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be one of those 14 fight cards.
No, I'm hoping 6-7, but just 6-7 magnificent fights.
Yeah, well, I think you're on the money there. And I think, I mean, I do know some of them, but they're under embargo. I can't really reveal them.
Come on, Gareth. No one's listening. It's only us.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the walls have ears on these things. I think, it's going to be a really good card. It's going to be similar to 5v5, 5 versus 5, Warren versus Hearn. There'll be a lot of big names on the card, a lot of really good matchups. They'll all be great fights. It's going to be a great night, and it's great that this expansion, this investment in boxing, is reaching out, like you say now, to Los Angeles, to London, and it's only going to grow. You can see from afar how this is going to be done. There might be 3 in London or 3 in the UK. In the next years, and 3 in America, and 2 in Japan with Naoya Inoue and those guys, and 6 events in Riyadh. It's really good for the sport, and I think everyone's building in the background as well. Small hall shows, middle tier shows. We've talked about it already today. It's going to be a big day tomorrow. It's going to be a really big day, and I think I'll see you there tomorrow afternoon.
Certainly will do. Finally, just before we wrap, obviously, me and you didn't speak about the Global Fight League. And that kind of sounded like it, what you just said there, with 4 or 5 big events in the UK, 4 or 5 big events in the States, 4 or 5 big events in Riyadh, maybe a couple of events in Asia. That kind of sounds like a Global Fight League, doesn't it? Without the idea of His Excellency and Sela buying up everything. This almost sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what the plans are yet. I mean, there are obviously plans to expand and out of Saudi Arabia, out of Riyadh Season. But we don't have a world governing body for the sport. And that the report in Reuters that the New York Times went wild with as well, that there were no quotes on, that there were estimates of 4 or 5 billion. I don't know anything about those figures. I mean, that's not what I've heard. But what I do understand is if you've got a benevolent governing body, world governing, but there's no world governing body for the sport. So a degree of homogeneity across rankings, testing systems, bans for drugs, tournaments for different weight categories, ranking system, those ranking systems creating tournaments. That is only good for the sport. Anyone that doesn't want that to happen wants it to just stay like it is, which is the equivalent of the Wild West in business terms, where we're looking at these algorithms and anomalies that don't work all the time. If it can be knocked into shape, it will be great. But I think the whole idea that the whole sport's going to be bought, I don't see that. I don't see it as possible. I just think what's happening at the moment will just evolve into a wider spectrum of events, and it will, maybe the weight classes between 135 and 140 will be invested in. I can see investment in Naoya Inoue, investment in things that really sell, that draw the eye. I remember writing a column just a few weeks ago, Addy, about Naoya Inoue. I might have mentioned it in our show. You might have been away that week. When he beat Luis Nery about 6 or 7 weeks ago, 2 months ago now, he became the number one pound for pound in the sport, Naoya Inoue, and yet to sports fans, no one knows who he is. Yeah. I love the fact that people like His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, the minister in Saudi Arabia, wants to say, let's invest in this guy, let's put him in big fights, let's put him in front of the world. Yes, great idea.
No, agreed. Can't agree more. I think what's happening right now is good for the sport. The sport's in an amazing place. And the offspring of these super events are smaller events that are still garnering interest as well. And I feel like every promoter and broadcaster is on their tiptoes now, knowing that they have to deliver. And that's only a good thing for the fighters, who will get paid more now as well, and the fans, who will get the fights we've been screaming for that haven't happened for years. Finally, you can dream of those fights happening. All your dreams are coming true, and you shouldn't be complaining, because I'm loving it as a boxing fan, and so should you.